Hi everyone. These days, variegated plants really seem to take the limelight, don't they? But there are still some really amazing solid green common house plants that are just as good. Today, we're going to be showing some love to some non-variegated, super underrated houseplants.
So first up, we have the Zamioculcas zamifolia, otherwise known as the ZZ plant. And I know a lot of people are kind of getting bored of the ZZ plant, but I personally still really love it, and I think it's one of the best plants out there. I think it's really beautiful, and yeah, I know a lot of people are getting kind of fed up with ZZ plants because they're kind of really common, but personally, I think they're one of the nicest plants. They can actually grow really large too over time, obviously. Mine's still fairly small, but I recently saw some really huge ones in the garden centre, and I just think they're beautiful. The new foliage comes out in more of a kind of a lighter green, and then it eventually matures out into a slightly darker green. But I don't think I could ever get bored of the ZZ plant. I really enjoy growing this one. It's not the fastest grower in my collection, I will say, but I just really enjoy having it, and I just think it's a really unique plant, and maybe because it's so common, we've all become a little bit kind of desensitized to it. But yeah, I really want to fly the flag for the common ZZ. I think everyone should have one, whether you're a beginner or whether you've got a little bit more experience. I think this is just one of those plants that is great for everyone, and yeah, drama free, and you can just leave it to do its thing, and yeah, just remember to water it now and again, and that's all it really needs. Obviously some light as well would be nice. Next we have the Syngonium white butterfly, and this is pretty much the kind of base Syngonium, the most common one that there is out there, but I've always absolutely loved this plant. It's one of those plants that, even though it's not variegated and it's just green, the leaves still look different, and I often get kind of darker bits or lighter bits, and I just really enjoy growing this one. Not only does it grow super fast, but it's a really interesting one to watch develop as well. I've got mine climbing up a pole here, and mine has grown so much since I've had it. It's also putting out loads of little babies. But this is a really interesting plant because it starts off with these sort of arrow-shaped leaves, but these are actually the juvenile leaves. Eventually, when it matures, the leaves start to kind of split into lobes, and yeah, it just is a really fascinating plant, I think. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with the plain old white butterfly green version. I think it's just as cool as some of the other kind of more colourful varieties of Syngonium that you can get. So yeah, I would highly recommend this one to basically anyone, I think. I very recently fell in love with the Peperomia Hope, and there's a lot to love about this one. It has plain green leaves, as I say, but I just think it's got the most interesting shaped leaves. It's kind of like coins, and this one is just really fascinating to me. I think it's quite structural in the way it grows, and eventually, as it gets bigger, I believe it starts to trail too. So I'm really looking forward to that, watching it grow up and become a big plant. But yeah, this one is super easy to care for too. I didn't used to be so good with peperomias, but so long as you let them dry out between waterings and you give them plenty of light, they seem quite happy. And I have to say, the Peperomia Hope has really won my heart, and it's become one of my favourite plants, and you'll find it's one of the easiest peperomias to get hold of too. So yeah, I'd really recommend it. Have a go at growing it and see what you think. I think you'll love it. So yeah, let me know what you think of this one. So this next one is called the Ficus alii, and ficus plants do get a lot of airtime, but I don't think this one really gets mentioned that much. The rubber plants with the kind of the big leaves get mentioned a lot, but I think this one is really interesting. It's got kind of more lobe shaped leaves, long leaves, and it is kind of like its cousins, more of a tree form. But I just think it's so cool the way the leaves kind of are all layered on top of each other, and it makes this little kind of tree. And yeah, I just think this is a really interesting ficus, and not one that you see about too much. You see a lot of people kind of talking about the Ficus elastica varieties, but not so much this one. And I don't think this one really gets enough love personally. I haven't actually had this one that long, but I'm finding it super easy to care for, and it's fast becoming one of my favourite plants. It's also a great plant to just fill a space as well if you're looking for quite a large plant, a kind of a statement plant. I really love how this one kind of fills the corner and domineers the space that it's in. But yeah, give this one a go if you're tempted. I think you will love it as much as I do. So next we have the Pachira aquatica, and again this is another common plant that you will just see absolutely everywhere. You see this in supermarkets as well. It's one of those kind of common plants that you can pretty much get wherever you go, but I just think it's a super stunning plant. I love the shape of the leaves, the way it's got all of these lobes, and it just makes a really cool little tree. I think it's got the kind of thick trunks that normally come braided like this. You don't have to have them braided, but most of the ones you'll find are braided, and I wasn't quite sure about that at first, but I'm getting used to it now and I quite like it. But I just really enjoy this one. It can get quite big, so it starts out as a small tree as I have it, and then over time it will get bigger. But I just think it's super underappreciated because we probably see it so often, as I said before. And yeah, I just think that this one deserves way more love than it gets because it's super drought tolerant and really easy to care for. It really isn't fussy. It's one of those plants that I could recommend to pretty much anyone, even people that aren't that good with plants. As long as you don't overwater it, it seems very happy. I often let mine dry out, and yeah, it just seems absolutely fine. Another of my favourite common plants is the umbrella plant. I just absolutely love this one. Again, this one is super easy to get hold of. This one is just the plain green version, but once this one gets going, it does grow very fast. And yeah, it basically grows into kind of a mini tree form. It can get quite large over time. There are different varieties that some can get bigger than others, but I just love the kind of spidery nature of the leaves on this one, the way they grow with all these different lobes. And yeah, this one is another low maintenance plant too, so it's really unfussy. I've had this one for a few years probably now, and yeah, it's never kind of suffered over the winter period. It doesn't mind drying out between watering. In fact, that's what it likes, so I always let it dry out. And it's also super adaptable too. With light, it can handle lower light, although I choose to give mine bright and direct light because I want mine to be growing quite a lot, which it is. It's putting out so many new leaves at the moment. And yeah, I just love this one. I think everyone should have one. This one did start out as a tabletop plant, but it's now becoming a floor plant for me because it's getting rather heavy, and yeah, the roots do grow a lot too, so it needs repotting every so often. Next up we have the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, another really common plant, but I just really enjoy this one. I've wanted one for a while and I recently got mine, and I just really enjoy the shape of the leaves. It's also called Monstera minima, even though it's not related to the Monstera. It's just because it's got those fenestrations. But if you are looking for a kind of a more compact fenestrated plant, then I say this is definitely a good option, because you can get this one climbing up, and the leaves do naturally stay fairly small too, so it's not going to kind of take over your space like a Monstera deliciosa might. But yeah, I just think it's a really cool one. I don't have much experience with this one yet, I have to say, but I'm really loving having it, and I think it's definitely one of those underrated plants, because yeah, it's seen as fairly common, isn't it? But I think it's one of the coolest, and yeah, it's a really fun plant to have. And I hear it's a fast grower too. I haven't had mine long, but everything I've heard about this plant from the research I've done suggests that it is a fast grower. So I'm really excited to start to see this one grow, because this year will be the first kind of growing season, so to speak, that I will have had this plant. So I am pretty excited to see what it will do. But yeah, I think this one definitely deserves far more love than it gets. And another plant that deserves far more love than it gets is the Monstera adansonii. This one is super common, but I think it's just as good as some of the variegated versions. I know a lot of people kind of go mad for the variegated adansonii, and I certainly wouldn't say no to one of those, but I certainly wouldn't pay the high kind of price for it. You can get this plain green one for a really low price, and I can confirm that this is a really fast grower. I would recommend that you put it on a pole though if you want it to grow fast, but yeah, it really does grow fast, and it's one that you can keep kind of more compact because you can get it kind of growing upwards, so it's a little bit easier to fit in a corner than say the Monstera deliciosa. But yeah, this one's just really satisfying, and one of those retro plants that used to be popular back in the day. And yeah, I'd like to see it get a little more love personally, because I just think it's really cool. And yeah, I would highly recommend this one to anyone. Not only is it a fun and satisfying plant to grow, but it's also really fuss free too. It does like to be fertilized, so don't skip your fertilizer, because this one does grow a lot. But so long as I keep up with the fertilizer, then I don't really get too many problems with this one. It will throw a tantrum and start yellowing leaves if it's not getting its nutrients, but that's fair enough. Other than that, really, yeah, it's pretty fuss free. And another plant that I find really easy and that I think is hugely underrated is the Peperomia obtusifolia. I recently got into peperomias, and this is one of the ones that I've been growing, and I just love how shiny the leaves are on this one. I think it's a really fun plant and really simple to care for too. I think I just maybe overcomplicated things when I was finding peperomias a struggle, because I'm now finding them really easy. So long as you let this one dry out between watering and you don't overwater it, it seems happy. But mine is putting out lots of new leaves at the moment, and I'm just having a lot of fun watching this one grow. I'm curious to see what it's going to do. But yeah, I think this is probably one of the most common peperomias. You can get a variegated version, but this one doesn't get nearly as enough love, I don't think. I think it's a really fun little plant to grow, and yeah, I think more people should know about it. So if you're thinking about giving one a try, maybe see what you think. And yeah, I'm sure it will be easy for you to get hold of this one as well. And then another plant that I just absolutely love is the yucca. And you'll see these everywhere. They're for sale in garden centres, they're for sale in supermarkets, big box stores. They're very common, but I think they're one of the coolest plants. To say this one is low maintenance would be an understatement. It genuinely just behaves itself all the time. It never gives me any trouble, and I love it. It kind of gives me that tropical feel, yet it, as I say, doesn't cause any trouble. I don't have to worry about it suffering during the winter. It's been just fine. It's even been putting out new growth for me this winter as well. And yeah, it just seems really adaptable too, because I've had it in a few different environments. And yeah, I just think it's a really good staple plant to kind of have in the collection. And I am very happy to have this one in my collection, especially since this is one that I propagated myself. So to have watched it grow over the last year has been really nice. And yeah, it even has like a third little baby coming out of the soil there, but it's starting to get quite tall again now. Its leaves are starting to get quite big, but luckily it's not too heavy, so I won't have to chop it again until it gets really top heavy again. Until that time comes, I shall just be leaving it to do its thing. Yeah.
Let me know what you thought of today's list. Is there anything that you would add? Let us know in the comments and let's have a discussion. And until next time, take care.